After the disappointment that was AO Tennis back in 2018, Big Ant Studios went back to the drawing board in more ways than one for the sequel. AO Tennis 2 comes back with improved gameplay and deeper modes than its predecessor, but is it enough to keep tennis fans hooked for more than just a set? Unlike the first game, AO Tennis 2 offers a number of options to keep players engaged and entertained. The first mode you see upon loading is the Australian Open, which the game's named after. It's a tournament mode that takes you through the first tennis major of the year, and it's complete with full Australian Open branding. There's also your standard play now and online modes, as well as a neat little scenario creator. It's a basic mode that allows you to create different moments and play them out on the court. Again, it's neat, but you'll quickly move on to other areas of the game like the game's creation suite and career mode. AO Tennis 2's creation suite is one of the deepest in any of Big Ant's games. The game returns pretty much the same player creation from the first AO Tennis, and the venue creator allows you to make the tennis environments of your dreams. What makes the suite really stand out, however, is that all community creations from both AO Tennis and AO Tennis 2 are available to download. The career mode is where AO Tennis 2 puts all of its efforts. You start as either an active or created pro, and then you kick things off with a cutscene that serves as an intro of sorts with some pretty awkward animation and voiceovers. Now, I'm all for cutscenes in sports games, but just because you can do something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should. Now, once you're in the mode, you have a central hub for checking events, messages, managing expenses, and more. In the player's calendar, you can set your events weeks and months in advance. Players can register for tournaments, take part in training, or even take a rest week if they want. Finding a nice balance between play, practice, and rest is key to making sure you never lose too much energy or run the risk of injury. Throughout your career, there's singles and doubles tournaments to register for, but if you want to give doubles play a shot, it's up to you to go recruit a partner. To get to these tournaments, you have to make sure you have the money for flights, accommodations, and general transportation. You even have to have the money to pay for things like your nutritionists and coaches. It's touches like that, as well as managing various sponsorships, that make the career mode actually worth playing. If I were to describe the gameplay of AO Tennis 2 in one word, it'd be twitchy. There are plenty of times where the controls feel perfect and everything plays smooth, but then there are times where the game just doesn't feel right. The shot system from AO Tennis returns, where you choose your shot with the phase buttons or the right stick, and use the left stick to move a white little reticle around to aim. For the most part, the shot system works, but when it doesn't, it can become really frustrating. You see a hit come at you and you know exactly what shot you want to return with. So, you run up to the ball and choose your shot, only to watch your player seemingly forget how to play the sport at all, whether it's hesitating to swing or simply watching the ball go by. In doubles play, that seems to happen far too often, as nerves apparently take over between players. But don't worry, the AI will still make the plays needed, even if that means returning a shot directly off their chest. Now, the general player movement does feel smoother than the first game, but it's still a bit too stiff for my liking. There's also a slight delay in movement response that shows up at the worst possible times in a match. You still can't dive for shots in the game, but you can actually run for them this time around, which is pretty nice. The game looks pretty much exactly like what you'd expect from a Big Ant Studios game. Everything looks good, but not great, and as we get to the end of the generation of consoles, things are starting to feel a bit stale. With that said, there is an overall better feel this time around than with that of the first game. There's still no true broadcast feel to the matches, but there is a nice intro that plays, as well as some informative stat overlays that come out throughout a match. They did add the pre-match coin toss this year, which does add something to the match, I guess, and you can also react to one of two ways after each point. I will compliment them, however, on the on-court sound. From the shoes, to the ball hitting the racket and playing surfaces, to even the crowd, it sounds like actually being at an event. My only complaint on that front is that the crowd still couldn't care less during long rallies, and the atmosphere seems to be about the same no matter what event you're playing in. The game's roster is decently sized, but it feels pretty weak. There are players like Rafa Nadal, Gal Monfils, Ash Barty, Joanna Konta, and Nick Kyrgios, but some big names remain out like the Williams sisters, Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, and more. Of the top 15 ATP and WTA players, only 4 in each are on the roster. It's not the biggest problem in the world because licensing can be pretty difficult, especially for smaller studios, but that doesn't mean it's not a bit of a disappointment. Also disappointing are the game's load times. On average, it took about 2 to 3 minutes just to load into a match, no matter the mode. AO Tennis 2 is a solid representation of the sport. There's plenty of mode variety and the gameplay is simple enough for anyone to pick up to get started. And even with its clear shortcomings on the court, it can be pretty fun, which is the whole point of games in the first place. Of all the modes available, Career is what will keep the fans coming back to the game, but we'll see if that's enough to keep them coming back month after month. For more on AO Tennis 2 and sports gaming content daily, subscribe to Sports Gamers Online and hit that bell to be notified whenever a new video goes live, and visit our website at sportsgamersonline.com.